15 facts about the situation in Iran. Welcome to Alux.com, the place where future billionaires come to get inspired. Hello Aluxers, and welcome back for today's video, in which we'll be exploring the bigger picture around a recent news story. It's often been said that we live in turbulent times, and one story that's been a major cause for concern in 2020 was the assassination of Iranian General Qasem Soleimani on the orders of Donald Trump. Shortly after the news broke, predictions of world war started trending on social media, leaving a lot of people asking how likely these were to come true, as well as questions like, why did this happen, and who was Soleimani anyway? So let's get straight to it and answer some of these questions, as well as give you some background on a country that's often misunderstood, Iran. Number 1. Who was Soleimani? The current crisis was triggered on the 3rd of January this year, when an American drone dropped a bomb on the car carrying Qasem Soleimani near Baghdad airport in Iraq, killing him instantly. Soleimani was the leader of Iran's Quds Force, the arm of the Iranian military responsible for covert operations outside of Iran, something like the Iranian version of the CIA. He was extremely popular across Iran, appearing on billboards across the country, and his popularity has prompted the international press to nickname him the Rockstar General. Commentators say he was the second most powerful person in Iran after the country's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei. Number 2. What's the background to his killing? Soleimani's assassination didn't come out of nowhere. In fact, there was quite a bit of background to it, which was reported but was easy to miss. In the past year since the Iran nuclear deal, the Iranian military and its covert operations arm carried out a series of attacks on U.S. merchant ships in the Straits of Hormuz, as well as U.S.-owned oil facilities and military bases. And as the head of the Quds forces, Soleimani would have certainly planned these. The Trump administration also stated his killing was ordered because of intelligence reports that he was organizing a plot which posed an immediate threat to American citizens, although there hasn't been any evidence of this yet. Number 3. What's behind the terrible relations between the USA and Iran? This dates just over 40 years ago to the Iranian Revolution. Until then, Iran had been ruled by the Shah, or Emperor, who was supported by the USA, but his rule had become more and more dictatorial. In 1979, protests led to the Shah's overthrow, as well as a new constitution, which turned Iran into an Islamic republic, and the supreme leader Ayatollah Khamenei was known for being extremely anti-American. In the same year, a group of followers of Khamenei seized the U.S. Embassy and held 52 staff members hostage. This episode became known as the Iran hostage crisis and was the subject of the Oscar-winning film Argo. Since this incident, Iran and the USA have never had diplomatic relations. Number 4. What's the Iran nuclear deal? For over 2 decades, Iran has been increasing its nuclear capability, stating that this was for civilian purposes, like energy and research. Around 2005, the international community became concerned that Iran would produce a nuclear bomb and started to apply pressure to Iran, which included economic sanction. But there was progress in 2015 when Iran made a deal with the United Nations. The deal erased sanctions on Iran, in return for Iran dismantling most of its nuclear production facilities and allowing international inspectors to go check up on it. In May 2018, Trump withdrew the USA from the agreement, saying it didn't address Iran's role in regional wars and reimposed sanctions. Since then, there's been an escalation in tensions, including the attacks on American ships and military bases. And following the assassination of Soleimani, Iran announced it no longer intends to honor its commitment to the deal. Number 5. What has the response been so far to Soleimani's killing? In Iran, millions gathered in the streets to mourn his loss, and in Soleimani's hometown, 50 people were tragically killed in a stampede. And between Iran and the USA, hostile tweeting from both sides were followed by Iran firing missiles at American military bases in Iraq. However, the missiles missed their intended targets. Some people have speculated that Iran missed their targets on purpose because they wanted to make it look as though they were wanting to avenge Soleimani's death, without antagonizing the US, which has a far greater military power than they do. Number 6. How was the Ukrainian airliner shot down? Tragically, on January 8th, a Ukrainian international airline flight bound for Kiev crashed shortly after taking off from Tehran airport. All 176 people on board, mostly Iranians and Canadians, as well as the Ukrainian crew, were killed. After 3 days of denial, the Iranian government admitted it had unintentionally shot the plane down in a heightened state of tension. Immediately, there were protests in the streets of Iran, whose citizens were furious their government had tried to cover up their role in the tragedy. Number 7. These haven't been the only protests in Iran. 2019 saw an increase in ordinary Iranians taking to the streets to protest against the government as a result of worsening living conditions. The economic situation can certainly be explained by the U.S. sanctions on Iran, but Iranians have also been noticing that increased military spending could have been much better used for schools and hospitals. November 2019 saw the biggest demonstrations against the regime since the 1979 revolution, which shows that discontent with the regime is on the rise. Number 8. What kind of government does Iran have? Since 1979, Iran has been an Islamic state, which means that all laws must be in accordance with the Sharia, or Islamic law. And while Iran does have an elected president, that doesn't mean he's the most powerful person in the country. The most powerful person by far is the supreme leader, who is elected by a select group of 12 people and can appoint or fire senior politicians, approve or veto laws or budgets, and basically has the final say on any important decision. And since the Iranian Revolution of '79, Iran has only had 2 supreme leaders. Number 9. What's their human rights record like? Sadly, it has to be said that Iran's human rights record is extremely poor. The government cracks down harshly on criticism and persecutes and arrests critics of the government and the supreme leader. Women's and children's rights are bad, and same-sex relationships are not only illegal, but punishable by death. After China, Iran executes the second highest number of prisoners, and in the protests of November 2019, Amnesty International reported that security forces killed more than 300 protesters. Number 10. How rich is Iran? The World Bank ranks Iran as an upper-middle-income country. In terms of the wealth in the country, it actually has the 27th biggest GDP in the world, placed right between super-wealthy Austria and Norway, although it does have a much bigger population of 82 million. If we divide its wealth by the number of inhabitants and take a look at its GDP per capita, Iran is in 94th place, slightly below South Africa, and a few places above Jamaica. In recent decades, around 45% of its income has come from oil and natural gas revenues, sectors which are state-owned. Agriculture also accounts for a lot, as Iran is one of the top producers of apricots, cherries, and pistachios, as well as car manufacturing and pharmaceuticals. Number 11. How much oil and gas does Iran have? The short answer is a lot. It's estimated that Iran has the world's second largest natural gas reserves after Russia, and the 4th largest oil reserves of over 150 billion barrels, and it's a major player in the club of oil-exporting countries, OPEC. However, its reliance on oil has made it very vulnerable to sanctions. In 2015, when sanctions were lifted, the economy shot up by 12%, mostly due to oil and gas. But since sanctions were put back in place again in 2018, oil exports shrank from 3.8 million barrels per day to around 1 million. Number 12. What's Iran's role in regional conflicts been? We already mentioned that Soleimani headed Iran's covert operations outside of the country, and these included networks of militias from the Mediterranean to the Arabian Sea. They included sponsoring insurgents in Lebanon and Yemen, as well as supporting Bashar al-Assad of Syria. Also, they have a lot of influence in Iraq, which would explain what Soleimani was doing there when he was killed. Number 13. How likely is World War III? Despite what's been trending on Twitter, you'll be relieved to hear that most expert commentators say it's not likely. This is because American military might is far greater than Iran's, so Iran really doesn't want a head-on confrontation. But what we might see is more covert actions on Iran's part, which may include cyber attacks and possibly attempts at assassinations or kidnappings of high-ranking Americans. But exactly what form these retaliations could take or when they'll happen is anybody's guess. Number 14. Sites of ancient civilizations. Hey Luxers, in the middle of some rather depressing facts about the current situation in Iran, let's not forget about some positives surrounding this country, like the fact that Iran is home to some fascinating culture that's thousands of years old, when it was known by its former name, Persia, and it has no less than 24 UNESCO World Heritage Sites, which include spectacular desert towns, beautiful mosques, and sites that date back to the Persian Empire. Iran has the 7th highest number of ancient archaeological ruins, which attracted over 8 million tourists in 2018. Number 15. Culture in Iran. As you'd expect from one of the world's oldest civilizations, Iran has a lot of culture, with great accomplishments in everything from art, poetry, and architecture to cuisine. And despite the lack of freedom of speech, in recent decades, Iran has still managed to shine by really putting itself on the map of world cinema. In 1997, the Iranian film Taste of Cherry won the Palme d'Or at Cannes, and more recently, Iranian film director Asghar Farhadi had won 2 Academy Awards for Best Foreign Language Film in 2012 and 2017. Well, Aluxers, that's a wrap on the situation in Iran for now, though we'll be keeping an eye on it as things change. But before we let you go, we're curious. What do you think of Iranian or Persian culture? What's the first positive association you can think of? Let us know in the comments. And of course, for sticking with us until the end, here's that bonus you're waiting for. You'll remember that oil and natural gas are Iran's biggest exports, but did you know that its 3rd biggest export is carpet? The earliest Persian rugs were made at least 2,500 years ago, and nowadays are one of the most desirable pieces of decor you can use to cover your floor. While they boast incredible artistry, weavers make a small mistake in each rug on purpose. The reason for this is to show that only God is perfect, and anything made by human hands is bound to have an imperfection, no matter how small. Thank you for spending some time with us, Aluxers. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss another video. We also handpicked these videos for you to watch next. As always, the conversation continues on social media. Thanks again, and we can't wait to have you back tomorrow.